Greetings, fellow time travelers. Welcome back to Treasures of History, where we uncover the hidden mysteries of lost civilizations and dive deep into the secrets that shaped our world. I'm your archaeological guide, ready to take you on another mind-bending journey through the corridors of time. Today's discovery will absolutely blow your mind. Hidden in the vaults of the British Museum lies a palm-sized clay tablet that could rewrite everything we know about the world's oldest map, and perhaps even biblical history itself. Before we unveil this incredible treasure, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss the ancient mysteries we're about to reveal. The discovery. Picture this. A simple clay disc no bigger than your hand, covered in faint cuneiform wedges that have softened over time. To the untrained eye, it looks almost ordinary. But fellow explorers, within this fragile disc of baked clay lies the first known map of the world, drawn by a Babylonian scholar over 2,500 years ago. For centuries, scholars believed this was just a symbolic, cosmic picture, a spiritual blueprint of the universe. But here's what will absolutely shock you. New discoveries have revealed something far more tangible. This map may not only depict the actual geography of the ancient world, it might also record the true resting place of Noah's Ark, the Babylonian World Map. Let's travel back in time together. The artifact in question, known as the Babylonian Map of the World, or Imago Mundi, dates back to the 6th century before Christ, when Babylon stood as the intellectual heart of the known world. At its center flows the Euphrates River, the lifeline of Mesopotamia. Beside it lies the rectangular city of Babylon itself, city of kings and astronomers. Around this inner scene, the scribe carved a double circle labeled the Bitter River, representing the great ocean that encircled the inhabited world. But here's where it gets really interesting, ancient seekers. Beyond this ring stretches a series of triangles, 8 in total, pointing outward like rays of the sun. And here's what baffled archaeologists: the cuneiform text describing each outer land hinted at precise directions, measurable distances, and even topographical features. This wasn't mythology. This was cartography. The Babylonians had mapped their world with astonishing precision. The breakthrough discovery. Among these distant realms, one triangle stood out. Its inscription, rediscovered thanks to the efforts of volunteer researcher Edith Horsley and British Museum curator Irving Finkel, described a great wall rising 840 cubits high, with trees reaching 120 cubits, accessible after crossing the Bitter River for 7 leagues. And then, fellow time detectives, a cryptic word appeared in its weathered lines: parsiktu. Finkel recognized it immediately. This term appears only once elsewhere in Mesopotamian literature, in the oldest known flood narrative, the Babylonian story of Atrahasis, the man who built a massive vessel to survive a divine deluge. In that text, Atrahasis describes the ship's planks as being as thick as a parsiktu pot. The presence of this word on the map could not be coincidence. It linked the world's first map directly to the world's first flood account, and therefore to the vessel itself. The missing piece. Now pay close attention to this incredible detail. When the fragment was placed on the original tablet, the missing triangle aligned perfectly, indicating it wasn't just a random piece of clay. The parsiktu inscription existed precisely where one of the outer mountain lands had been lost. Finkel realized this triangle, the 5th region beyond the Bitter River, described the very mountain where the Babylonian Noah's Ark had come to rest. The cuneiform lines even mentioned ribs as thick as parsiktu, a clear reference to massive wooden beams still visible on the mountain. In other words, ancient explorers, the Babylonians, had a map showing where Noah's Ark landed. The implications of this discovery are absolutely staggering. Long before the Book of Genesis was written, Mesopotamian scholars recorded the aftermath of the Great Flood as a tangible event within their geographical knowledge. Noah's Ark wasn't a symbol of salvation. It was a real vessel resting on a real mountain. Its remains considered a landmark of divine intervention. The geographical markers in the text align closely with the region later known as Urartu, the ancient kingdom encompassing parts of modern Armenia and eastern Turkey. And within that region, one mountain dominates both legend and landscape, Mount Ararat, the geographical connection. Here's something that will fascinate you, history seekers. The connection between Urartu and Ararat is clear linguistically and historically. The Hebrew term in Genesis, Har Ararat, derives from the Assyrian name Urartu, which appears directly on the Babylonian map. For the Babylonians, Urartu lay just beyond their northern horizon, a mountainous land associated with gods and flood remnants. From the earliest preserved lines of the post-flood tradition, the geography of Noah's Landing is depicted not as a single mountain peak, but as a mountain range. Genesis chapter 8, verse 4 mentions that the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat, plural. In the Hebrew phrasing, Hare Ararat is plural, used as a regional designation rather than a specific peak. In ancient Near Eastern language, Ararat referred to the highland kingdom the Assyrians called Urartu, centered around Lake Van and stretching across what is now eastern Turkey and parts of Armenia. The search begins. Over the centuries, traditional focus narrowed. Christian iconography and pilgrimage culture gradually elevated one mountain's name. Today, the twin-peaked, snow-capped volcanic mass on the Turkish-Armenian border, to become Mount Ararat. European travellers and biblical scholars in the 17th and 19th centuries, they set their compasses toward Ararat. In dictionaries, surveys and commentaries, Ararat increasingly became the default location. The widely circulated Augustine Calmet's Dictionary of the Bible, published in 1722, repeated ancient reports that Ark remains still rested atop the mountain, though it considered these claims unverified. Friedrich Parrot's 1829 ascent, led by Armenian scholar Khachatur Abovian, was a pivotal moment, not a search for the Ark in the modern sense, but the first scientific climb to Ararat's summit. Parrot brought data and measurements, igniting public imagination, fired by the idea that science and scripture could share common ground. The modern expeditions. Since then, pilgrim notebooks and journals have recorded a steady stream of reports. Boat-shaped silhouettes above the snow line, timber-ringed caves, wooden fragments shown by shepherds. Most were second- or third-hand sources. None withstood sustained scrutiny. Ark artifacts appeared in churches, but when testable, they were mostly driftwood or construction timber of uncertain provenance. The mountain was, frankly, harsh toward transient claims. And there were good reasons for this failure rate, ancient code breakers. Ararat's upper slopes are an exposed theatre of time and weather. Thick snow cover and glacial flows blanket, grind, then reshape surfaces every season. Volcanic rock fractures under freeze-thaw cycles. Glaciers creep and break off. Even the age of aerial photography and later high-resolution satellite imagery made precise surveying of the upper flanks nearly impossible. The Durupinar Site. Yet conviction that Noah's Ark left its imprint somewhere in Urartu did not dissipate. It migrated and diversified, inspiring new search paths. In 1959, Turkish Air Force Captain İlhan Durupinar, an aerial photography expert, was analyzing reconnaissance images near Doğubayazıt when a bow-tapered rectangular shape caught his attention. On the ground, this formation measured approximately 164 meters, about 538 feet, from bow to stern. Astonishingly, the Durupinar Site in eastern Turkey matched exactly the 300 cubits, approximately 165 meters, described in Genesis for Noah's Ark. And when you exclude the sloping earthen apron surrounding the formation, its width-to-length ratio approaches 6:1, exactly the biblical proportion of 300 by 50 cubits. Even ground surveys of the site reportedly show 3 distinct levels within a vertical span of 15 to 16 meters, consistent with the ark's 3-story height of 30 cubits. The evidence builds. In the early 1960s, George Vanderman organized surveys. Through the 70s and 80s, prominent and determined figures like Ron Wyatt, David Fasold and others really pushed the site into the headlines. They promoted metal detector scan results, rib-like linear sets, and these so-called drogue stones, massive perforated blocks in neighbouring villages which they proposed as anchor weights, and claims of buried wood traces or petrified timber. Local residents pointed to stones with beveled holes as evidence of maritime function. The narrative, coalesced into this captivating tableau. A massive ship petrified in place, its frame cradled by a natural berm, anchor stones scattered down the slope from the vessel's grounding. For many longing for a tangible Noah's Ark, Durupinar seemed like a door flung wide open. The scientific response. Skeptics answered with geology. The site sits on complexly deformed, terrain-metamorphosed ultramafic rocks, including peridotite, alluvial fans, and lava-intruded sequences, all pushed by regional faults. Erosion and landslides can produce boat-like outlines, especially where a harder caprock protects softer fill beneath. To a structural geologist, the ribs read as tension cracks and bedding planes, the keel as a drainage channel or resistant seam layer. The so-called drogue stones are local volcanic or sedimentary rocks, widespread in the highlands, repurposed across centuries for religious or practical purposes. While some tests indicated wood signatures, independent samples often showed ambiguous organic materials, soil iron oxides, or false positives from natural mineralization. Fasold himself, interestingly, softened his claims later. Mainstream opinion converged in geology and Near Eastern archaeology. The Durupinar Formation is best explained as a natural geological phenomenon. Captivating, photogenic, evocative, but not clearly a human-made structure. The ongoing debate, it continues, not least because Durupinar is visible. Anyone can see the boat shape, and narrative power influences the public sphere more than peer review. Meanwhile, the Ararat summit hypothesis continues on a separate track. In 1949, a U.S. Air Force reconnaissance plane captured the intriguing straight-line Ararat anomaly on the Western Plateau. The search for Noah's Ark remains one of archaeology's most fascinating mysteries, blending faith, science, and human curiosity in ways that continue to captivate minds around the world. Conclusion. Your thoughts? So, fellow time travelers, what do you think? Could the Babylonian map truly mark the location of Noah's Ark? Is the Durupinar Site a geological coincidence or the greatest archaeological discovery of our time? Does the Ararat anomaly hold secrets yet to be revealed? Share your theories in the comments below. What ancient mystery should we investigate next? Join our archaeological journey and unlock ancient mysteries with us. Don't forget to subscribe to Treasures of History for more mind-blowing discoveries from the ancient world. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next expedition through time. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, the greatest treasures are